Yes, she's lawful apparel. Yes, I know. I suppose given that there were about 9 matches or something, or unofficially 10 if you count that 24/7 thing, for the second half of WrestleMania. So what was everyone's favourite match, I guess?
Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair, hands down. Whole of Mania for me, best match of WrestleMania, Ripley and Flair. Went move for move, how I would have booked it. I thought it told a very clever, really good story, lots of psychology. It's the sort of wrestling match I love. I thought the right person went over. Just love Ripley and Flair. I thought that stole the show for me personally.
Mm-hmm. What about yourself, Neil? What was your highlight of WrestleMania?
What, day 2 or day 1 overall?
Day two.
Day 2. It's might be an unpopular opinion, but I really, 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 really enjoyed the Last Man Standing empty arena match. Mainly because it reminded me of one of them, well, probably the most famous empty arena matches, which is the Rock and Mankind. It was very much in the style of that one, and I think Randy Orton and Edge are fantastic, as they are anyway, but to put them in that environment, I liked how they pushed the envelope quite a lot as well in that, and it was almost near death.
Maybe a bit too much with that gym scene.
Oh yeah, with the weights bit, that was
did that not get edited out?
I know a lot of people were complaining about that because it was too near Chris Benoit's suicide, especially since that documentary only came out last week.
It was the same kind of machine.
Yeah, as well. Since that documentary just came out as well.
What made them think that was okay?
I think
that's straight after the release of the Beyond the Ring as well. You know.
Yeah, I think that's why. I think that's why it's getting so many complaints, because it's fresh in people's memory again because of what's just come out. Yeah,
I agree, Liam. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I think that was just great, and also I like the way that he dropped an F-bomb to make it more natural and stuff. I think that was pretty much on par with what people wanted from something like the Boneyard match, to be more naturalistic. But it definitely wasn't.
Neil, that match has had a lot of criticism. A lot of people say it's boring and that it went too long. I would argue that it didn't go too long. I quite like the fact it went so long because it was the story that needed to be told. But I think WWE audiences have been preconditioned. I put this on our Facebook page. They've been sort of preconditioned to have very short attention spans to react to spots and to moments, but not to the actual story, the actual wrestling in between. And I think that's WWE's fault for the way they precondition their audience to react to these quick, snappy 4 to 6 minute matches full of spots. A story that lasts 40 minutes. I can see why people were bored. Me personally, I thought it was perfect.
I think, Lucas, that's why we don't get a lot of Iron Man matches. I think you can count on the one hand as many as we've had. And I think, first of all, it's difficult to find 2 wrestlers who can actually do an Iron Man match. But secondly, I think it also shows as well that a lot of people just won't tolerate, you talk about an Iron Man match. If I remember correctly, the last one was only 30 minutes anyway. So I'm
normally 30 now,
Yeah, I'm talking a 60-minute Iron Man match.
Yeah.
I'm talking
Iron Man match was hours.
I think a lot of people for that match as well. I know it did tell a great story over the length of time it was, and in fact, it's the second longest match in Mania history.
Wow.
Next to the Iron Man match.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people from what I've read, and I can see where they're coming from as well. That they could have told exactly the same story, but condensed it down a lot of
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of shooter there to it, but I still enjoyed pretty much every second of it personally. But I know some people wouldn't have liked that.
I thought it flew by.
I've got a friend who Mania Night 2, it was the first wrestling show he's ever watched.
Right, okay.
Wow.
And we were on video, because there was a group of us.
Show to watch
by fire.
And it only came about because there's a group of us who we're all wrestling fans, but he's in this group with us and he's never really been a wrestling fan. and we were like in a video call whilst the show was going on.
Sorry.
During night one, and he obviously didn't join, but then he felt a bit left out, so he downloaded the network and watched night two with us. And one thing about that match, as he said, is when they were fighting in the corridor of the performance center, because obviously it's quite a small corridor. What he was saying is when Orton was throwing Edge up against the wall, you could sort of see him like protecting himself somewhat,
yes.
which is fair. But then, like what we said is usually it would have been sort of a much bigger arena. The camera could have been further away. They could have
that's it.
used different camera trickery.
Yeah.
And
also, if someone was throwing your head against a wall, you would put your hand up.
Yeah.
So that is, to me, a natural reaction.
Yeah.
That doesn't make that look realistic of someone getting their head rammed into a wall and quickly saluting at the last minute to dampen the impact. To me, that looked fine.
There was a couple of bits that I'd had noted from that one. I mean, that's why I was sort of randomly what looked like I was pointing at the screen at the camera before I was scrolling to the notepad file that I had with little bits of notes on from it. And I think, to be fair, it was nice that they seemed to break it up with cutscenes when the cameras got knocked out or disabled one way or another.
And you see a cameraman running to the next segment, you mean?
Yeah.
It sort of seems like that's a good place for them to sort of cut the tape, cut the tape with the pre-tape. And
also, how realistic did that look? That there wasn't just so happens in WWE that just so happens to be a cameraman in the right place, always at the right time, and it makes it look a little bit like it's like it's predetermined. With this, with the cameraman running to get into position, with the cameraman running around the facility trying to find where the wrestlers were. It added that element of realism, but you don't know where they're going to go, you don't know where they are, and it didn't look predetermined because there was a camera.
I have to agree, Lucas. I think that was great. What kind of reminded me of that, though, Damien, if you remember the Royal Rumble '99 when Austin gets beat up in the bathroom, and the camera is like looking for him, and then comes into the bathroom and notices that he's lying on the floor, and it very much gives the impression that like this isn't something that was planned. And I think that the camera positions that evening with Austin not being in the Rumble, if you look back now, you kind of see that they frame it in a way that this is totally unexpected. That suddenly, oh my God, this man's been assaulted in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think what one thing that did bug me a bit, and it's really just nitpicking, is when Orton got laid out on the table, how conveniently placed the ladder was for Edge to climb, and you could also see that the ladder was securely tied to the rafter, so it wouldn't fall.
That's like the biggest ladder you've ever seen in your life. That massive ladder. That was like bigger than both. That was like scaled the whole floor nearly. It's like I'm sure that something that stood out for me was the size of that ladder was like the biggest ladder.
I know which one you mean. It was the one that was like pressed up against the wall, so conveniently placed.
Oh right, okay,
When Orton had put. When Edge had put Orton on the table, and then when he was climbing up, the camera obviously moved to show him, and you could see it was tied to the wall so it wouldn't fall.
Yeah.
And that was just one thing that bugged me about that match.
There was one little thing that I noticed as well, and I know this is probably a really little tiny detail that's probably completely and utterly insignificant. But one of the massive sort of flight cases that they had there had badly stenciled on it what looked like a label that had the word pre-tapes written on the label. It was like an absolutely like a really large flight case. I don't know if that was like a little nod to something or whether it's just something that
I think that was probably intentional.
Little Easter eggs that they pop in there, and then they do a list on WWE.com afterwards and go, "Hey, did you see this? Everyone's talking about the Easter eggs that we forgot."
What was the title belt that was in one of the cases? There was a title belt that I couldn't quite see. Just lying there in one of the cases.
Because they were fighting in the warehouse, weren't they? So that's where like all this stuff. Distasteful as it is, back tonight quickly, just in the Boneyard match, my friend was like, I'm half expecting to see Katie Vick gravestone. But yeah, but then when we were in the warehouse, he was like, "We're going to see something like totally random here."
What would be even
what
more?
would have been better is the opponents the Undertaker has beaten at WrestleMania on the headstones. So you've got Kane, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Jake the Snake, all of these tombstones, and then Styles gets put in his one like the rest of them.
Yeah, because he'd done that with the coffins for his entrance against Lesnar at Mania 30, didn't he?
Yeah.
That was one of my favourite entrances.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was probably the best entrance, actually. That was a really good entrance, that. I might rewatch that after I'm done with this.
Rob, what was your favourite from night 2?
Well, it's going to surprise you, but considering what my opinions on the Boneyard match was, it's the Funhouse match.
I'm going to...
I say a match. I mean, obviously it was a segment. It wasn't a match, but it was. That was probably the most creative thing I've seen WWE do for a very, very long time.
I mean,
a very long time.
It was also
so good.
It was also home to the greatest WrestleMania return of all time, the SmackDown Fist.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, but also the old blue steel cage.
Yes.
Oh yeah, the cage
from, with the whole Saturday Night's Main Event thing, and then the Nitro entrance as well.
That was weird.
All of that. I mean, it was just so. It was just so good. And the whole thing. I mean, I didn't like the Boneyard match at all. I just thought that was ridiculous. But I can't fault their creativity with it.
You thought the Boneyard match, which was realistic-ish, was ridiculous. Yet the
yeah, because it was so bonkers that it was good. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas with the Boneyard match, it took itself a bit too seriously. And you couldn't really take it seriously because of the background music, and which course Funhouse match had. But it was just not my cup of tea. But the Funhouse match was just so
match
the way it was
what happens when you let Bray Wyatt be creative and he's not held back by Man and Kevin Dunn.
Well, yeah, I mean that had his fingerprints all over it.
I also like how up for it John Cena was, because for a fact if John Cena had said no to any of those ideas, management wouldn't let them happen.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And I think, look, right, it wasn't my favourite match of the night because it wasn't a match. It was
a match at all.
It was a promo segment essentially.
Video art.
I mean, apparently, according to Wikipedia, it is a match that went 13 minutes, but it's not a match, really, is it?
Well, I'm not even sure I know who won. I think both men won, really, because they're both.
Well, Wyatt won.
To be honest, for doing that, or maybe Titus won for his reaction afterwards.
I thought I was going to say damn at the end.
Can I just say, in the short time he was host, he was a 20 times better host than Gronk.
Oh, absolutely. We'd never see him again.
Yeah, Rob, unfortunately, we have to see him at least once more because he's 24/7 champion.
Is he still champion after Raw?
I know, it's just awful.
Well, he's signed with WWE, isn't he? He's around for good.
Well,
apparently he's going to be on SmackDown.
It's just, especially during part 1 where him and Mojo Rawley were trying to be the crowd. That was just so embarrassing. It was just so cheesy. I just hated that.
Not my
thing. Yes.
Not my cup of tea.
Yeah, it was awful.
There was something that I'd put together with the Gronk and Mojo Rawley when there was one particular shot that I was looking at them and I was thinking, there's a really, really obscure techno punk band from Batley these guys are like they look like the Pound Shop version of this techno band. I was gonna post the picture up.
I think I saw it, Damien. Was it the Petrol band, or whatever they're called?
Yeah.
I think I have seen that floating around Facebook. Yeah.
I'm just watching back through Mania here, and I've just noticed, you know how you're on about the Badley stencil thing earlier?
Yeah.
There's also a sign on the wall saying the gym is closed for everyone per WWE medical director.
Amazing.
Yet they're fighting in the gym.
You'll also notice as well during the Boneyard match that one of the back of the graves is exposed, and you can possibly see where someone has left their lunch. in the back of the grave because it's a wooden stand. Someone is like,
is that real?
In there.
Really?
So there's a close up of where the back of the grave is exposed, and there's like something in there, which kind of made me think of Lucas's video about the Queen, where she's hiding something on her desk. What have you got there? What are you hiding? No, but no, I mean, look, right, as far as the Firefly match and all that, my favourite match of the night was the 5-way elimination, and partially because Lacey Evans did such a good job and then got robbed. And can I say, I don't know, I thought that those two girls were like faces, so I was really shocked to see a face help a face win against a heel by cheating. And I was like, it didn't seem to make sense. I was like, I don't know. I robbed.
I mean, that 5-way was extremely well structured. Sorry, 2 seconds was trading up.
It got decent time as well.
Yes.
Yeah. It was quite a long match, wasn't it? It was a good match. I enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, who else is going to go over other than Bayley in that circumstance, other than Sasha Banks?
For me, they should have pulled the trigger on Sasha or Bayley turning on each other. They've left it far too long. If it happens now, we're just not going to care about it because they teased it last year, but then they became friends again.
They teased it in WrestleMania. I think we're going to get it in SummerSlam.
I just think everybody's past caring now because they've had so many opportunities to pull the trigger, and then they just don't, and then they don't build up anymore. They just have one of them have a title, and the other one think, oh, maybe I should go for that title.
They might have pulled the trigger on that if there'd have been a crowd there to appreciate.
I think that's one thing that like
they pulled the trigger on Drew McIntyre, so they're not going to hold back Sasha Banks.
I think that was one of my favourite matches of the night as well. It was so well put together. Every woman got decent in-ring time.
Yeah.
And until Tamina got pinned, I wasn't aware it was elimination.
She got told to stop using the ropes. It was no disqualification.
That's a bit weird, wasn't it?
It's very weird. But can I just I had something I wanted to say about the Firefly Funhouse match, which I wanted to get off my chest as far as Bray Wyatt is concerned and all that. And I wanted to know what people thought of this because we've obviously, we've had WrestleMania, right? And I kind of look back now at the Firefly match and I go, am I missing something? And then I saw the trailer for The Undertaker, the preview for The Undertaker's Last Ride. And something that Undertaker said kind of caught my attention about letting things slip. And so I kind of thought, my theory is that Bray Wyatt, my theory is that Bray Wyatt is really actually a lot more injured than people think. And that while he can do a couple of moves, he can't actually wrestle a match. And so the reason for having The Fiend the way he is to give Bray creative control and let him be the character. But when it comes to wrestling the match, he's not actually able to do that for longer than maybe a minute or two or a couple of moves.
I would say that's more true of John Cena because obviously the reason he's not full-time is he's doing movies now and he's signed up to things like Fast and the Furious and I don't know what other films he's signed up to do.
He's only actually signed to this film, though.
Oh, right, okay.
Fast and Furious. Because,
my point
Dwayne Johnson can't do it.
Yeah, that's for the same reason. It's pretty much the reason that they don't want to get him too injured, so he can't do the movie.
Yeah, right. So like The Rock did with Hercules.
Yeah.
That's
my theory.
One theory that I read about the match, and I shared it with you guys yesterday, is the match was based on John Cena's fears, and when it went through his career, it was based on his fear of his debut failing. Based on his bodybuilding career failing, based on his fear of turning heel, or if he did turn heel, would that fail? And his fear of retirement. And was it all a dream? Was John Cena dreaming that? Because he made his entrance in the arena. He made his entrance in the arena, and then all of a sudden he appeared there. And then after he got pinned, he disappeared. So was it all a dream?
It was interesting because when
I hope it wasn't a dream, because how are we as fans meant to have seen that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a struggle for me, even for wrestling. That would be a struggle.
Yeah, but I can sort of see where this theory's going with it. I liked it, as we keep saying. It wasn't a match. It was good for what it was. I did enjoy it. It was.
The bigger question. The bigger question is, if it wasn't a dream, if it wasn't a hallucination, who the hell is controlling Abigail? Who's controlling Rambling Rabbit?
Well, they're supposed to be real, aren't they?
Well, if they're real, are they Rambling Rabbit out? I mean, I love the whole commentary thing with the buzzard, and when they were like,
Vince McMahon.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's good.
Everything has double meanings as well. There was a little hidden meaning behind everything.
Yeah.
Do you know the whole "this is good" thing?
Yes.
Yeah, from Dean Ambrose, isn't it? John Moxley on Jericho's podcast.
Yes, yeah. So that's of what Vince used to say.
Apparently, Vince liked this as well.
Yeah, apparently when Dean Ambrose went to Vince and complained about the angle his character was going, that's what Vince turned around and said to Dean Ambrose.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they've
used that. And then when Moxley went on Jericho's podcast, it almost became like a meme, didn't it? Where every time WWE did something silly, someone would say, "Oh, that's good S word," i.e. Vince McMahon does it again, something silly, and he's sort of taken ownership of it now, because it was almost like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. John Moxley sort of, I'm glad I've left WWE kind of thing. And now it's like, hey, well, WWE have just taken ownership of it, so it's ours now.
Yeah.
I just think, I think it's like crazy when like the one part kind of, I mean, everything was kind of like a bit, obviously tongue in cheek, but when Cena's walking along in the dark and the boss approaches him and Cena's looking at the puppet and he doesn't even know what to believe, and I'm like,
yeah.
How, like, you know, just Cena talking to a puppet, like there's nothing else on screen.
It very much reminded me of, it very much reminded me of, if anyone's played Batman Arkham Asylum and there's got the Scarecrow levels, where it's a hallucination.
Yeah.
It's very much like that, except that, like, I kind of agree with Rob how we're meant to see it. If it's a hallucination, how are we seeing it? They didn't really explain that.
For Ultimate Warrior in the mirror back on Nitro.
Yes, that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people who are saying that the WWE should bring in a new version of the NWO and have Cena in charge.
Yeah,
well, they have done that. They've Undisputed Era's the new NWO.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. They've got
and Nexus was as well.
Nexus.
Nexus.
Well, I wouldn't mind seeing a new version of the NWO. I think it's been long enough since the last one. It was 2002, wasn't it?
We've got the club, haven't we? And that really is an offshoot from the Bullet Club, which is really...
Well, no, they're dead now. They got killed.
Oh, yeah.
That whole thing with Bischoff, was that meant to be like, was that in any way connected to when Bray was part of Nexus as Husky or something? Was that like,
perhaps.
I think it was meant to be symbolism of like Cena's getting the Hogan treatment. Like Hogan got in WCW, where you just was contracted to win every match.
I'm presuming that they told Bischoff about that, but you can imagine him sitting at home and his phone just starts lighting up when people are tweeting him.
They probably didn't tell him about it.
They didn't tell him, but he's actually been really positive about it.
Oh, right.
He really enjoyed it. He's been very, very complimentary about the Funhouse match.
Chris Jericho's been very complimentary about the whole show.
That's funny, Jericho, isn't it? Yeah. I saw they used a clip with CM Punk in it. Is that kind of a little taster of maybe what we might get in the future?
They own the images. They own the copyright.
I know, but still, why would they use a clip with CM Punk in it if they weren't gonna?
CM Punk said he'd only come back to wrestle 4 guys.
Well, he should. Then he should.
Those four guys are John Cena, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, or Roman Reigns.
Oh wow! Yeah, definitely.
He said Will Ospreay as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He said Will. Yeah, but Will Ospreay isn't in WWE.
Blooper reel tonight.
Neither CM Punk.
Yeah, well, I know he's contracted to Fox, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not contracted.
But those are the only four WWE guys he said he'd come back and want to wrestle.
Yes, I thought he was one of the few people that's on the definite persona non grata list for the time being. That's it for the time being, but because that seems to change over time. But from what I heard fairly recently on, it was I think it might have been one of Conrad's podcasts. I'm not 100% certain. It was either one of yeah. It was apparently he's they can't work with Punk. They can't do any direct work with Punk.
Interesting.
But Punk has an exclusive contract with Fox Sport.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, if he ever wrestles for WWE again, it'll be because Fox have told him to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Mania was great. I thought it was really good show.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I enjoyed something about every match, even though some matches, like I've said in the past, just didn't need to be on the card. Even the Aleister Black and Bobby Lashley, it was a bit
the one I'm watching now. That's the one. It was a complete waste of time.
It didn't need to be on the card, but there was some good wrestling. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
There was some good wrestling on that match, though. I would say.
It was a decent match. It just didn't need to be on Mania, but I mean, all it's
the
done
only thing that was wrong
really
with it was the lack of build. If they had done a storyline and some promos, happy days. The match itself was fine for me. I just think it was the lack of build and the lack of fan interest is what dampened that.
I mean,
you could have given Black any number of opponents who weren't on WrestleMania. That would have given them much better match. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Cedric Alexander, Eric Young, EC3.
Or somebody from another brand.
Yeah.
So what they've essentially done. So what they've essentially done there is they've started something at Mania with the potential Lashley versus Lashley breaking up with Lana thing.
They followed it up on Raw as well, so there is stuff going on there.
I mean they've used it to start that angle, which it
has set up a new storyline of Lana and Lashley. Trouble in paradise, if pun intended.
They really shouldn't have used Mania for that. You know what I mean? Mania is meant to be like the big payoff of everything. It's not meant to be like the. I mean that match should have been on the Raw after rather than actual Mania itself.
Or what it should have been is at the Royal Rumble, and then you pay off all of this at Mania. Yeah, that's what you should have done. Mania should be the conclusion of all the feud, not the beginning.
The underline of the story.
Sometimes storylines start at WrestleMania, heel and face turns, and sometimes they work out okay. I don't have a lot of faith in this storyline, to be honest, but let's see where they go with it. The main event. And the secret main event, Big Show versus Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, that would be. That was. I wasn't expecting to do that. Like, straight away. Yeah.
There was. Well, it was a Raw match, but it was at Mania. It was just one that they didn't show on the broadcast. It was a dark match.
I thought that was part of Raw.
No, it was a part of Mania. It was a part of WrestleMania. There was a moment. Big Show can still go as well. Big Show is in good shape. But there was a part when I thought they were going to put the belt on Big Show. I popped when he chokeslammed him. I thought, oh no, I know what they're doing. But luckily they didn't. But there was a split second. But I believed that false finish. When Big Show had him up for that chokeslam, I thought, that's it.
I thought that was going to be it. Yeah.
Ruined it. But...
what about the hidden main event that the sort of hidden track at the end of WrestleMania, Rob?
I'll go on the DVD, I think, won't it?
It'll be a DVD. It'll be on the DVD.
Yeah. It'll be the extended cut.
Swear word, then I just dropped an F-bomb. You might have to bleep that bit out in the final.
That's all right, mate. Like I said,
extended cut, because That they can do that now. They can do extended cuts now because if everything's pre-recorded, they can do that now, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But one thing we haven't talked about yet, which I think was an important match, it was probably one of the only ones that had a really big build, was Dolph Ziggler versus Otis, which had a really good. Would have worked better if it had a crowd because obviously the big pop was going to be Mandy Rose coming back, but there was no crowd to pop, so nothing happened. Nice ending, and I think everyone liked it. But
I loved it.
I've got to ask though, right? I mean, could Mandy Rose have picked anything that was closer to the color of her flesh than the outfit that she was wearing that was on camera?
That was a bit of a weird looking outfit, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a weird outfit, wasn't it? But
it was like it just looked like from certain points when certain lights were flashing on it from different directions, it just looked like it was non-existent. You know, it's like tan
I think in terms of the match, though, the match was good, but the build-up, I thought, I don't normally like those kind of storylines, those sort of romance angles, but that I thought was done pretty well. Yeah, I
think they started at Christmas, didn't they? They started at Christmas when she gave them their food.
Yeah,
and then it was a good payoff because I think Otis is like a sympathetic face because he's got that kind of face, doesn't he? Where he's like kind of a little bit silly and a bit.
Well, he's like what?
He'd be like, I can't have a word for it, but
all the characters did what they were supposed to do.
Formless is the word I'm looking for.
It's got to be Mustafa Ali is the Hafizite.
Yeah. Oh, is he? Oh, yeah, because it's in with his ring gear, isn't it? Yeah. I see what you mean.
Looks like
just out of interest, and I know this is going to initially sound like it doesn't make any sort of sense in the context of this conversation, but has it been 7 years since Solomon Crowe disappeared from NXT?
From who? Solomon Crowe?
Oh,
Sammy
Callahan.
Yeah. Has it been 7 years yet?
Hang on a minute, I'll look that up. 1 second there.
He's still one of the main stars in Impact, isn't it?
Yeah, he's still one of the main stars down there. Basically, because I mean,
so is EC3.
There's this whole theory that was kicking around for a while about if there's an idea that doesn't work out for one reason or another, but still seems good, like still seems like it could have legs just with someone else, they'll wait 7 years and then try it again. And obviously, Sammy, 5 years. Oh, they're pulling the trigger a bit early.
Sometimes they wait less. Sometimes they wait less. They rehash gimmicks and stories all the time. So if it hasn't worked the first time, they do rehash things. But I think you're right. It's a rehash of Solomon Crowe, just hopefully done better. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So is he a babyface for putting these cameras up everywhere and spying on the women's locker room? And is he meant to be
maybe this is the final conclusion of GTV? Maybe this is the final.
Yeah.
Like we had a 25-year build-up.
Yeah. I would love to see that. I would love to see them just use that to tie it together again. Right.
Like some veterans, it was me all along.
Yeah.
It's me, Austin.
It's like Hardcore Holly, and it's like, do we care?
Wasn't that Goldust, wasn't it?
It was 1 point Goldust, it was 1 point Tom Green.
I heard that.
We never found out who that was, did we? GT.
No, but I think it was Goldust.
Supposed to be. I think that was the. I think that was the implication, but it never happened, did it?
Yeah, we never saw on camera that it was definitely.
It's probably Hornswoggle, wasn't it?
It's more than likely.
That's what they do when they're sick of a storyline. They're like, Hornswoggle did it.
Yeah, oh God, that was. I mean, when they did that with the GM, that was just awful, wasn't it?
And Vincent's son they did that with as well. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't mind that so much. It was the GM because they could have done something really special with that, but
they built it up for so long to be something important, and then when it just turned out to be that, it was such a cop out.
Yeah.
Didn't like that.
But I mean, the storyline was pretty much dead for a long time before they just went back to it, though.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't do that again. But yeah, you're right. It set up something else. That it set up a new storyline for the Who's the Hacker sort of thing. So that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah, it's a good story.
Off TV. What do you guys think about Drew McIntyre winning the title at WrestleMania? Would you have rather than waited until there was a crowd to get the big pop?
No, it was the right call, I think.
Yeah, it was probably the right time.
Get it off Lesnar.
Yeah,
right place and right time, I would say. Yeah, definitely. Because it was better than the Braun Strowman and Goldberg, because it wasn't just like, that's it. It was like, oh, he's kicked out of the Claymore kick. It could happen, it couldn't happen. But yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
The Strowman match was just like, you didn't really care what was going on because there was no build, no investment. Whereas this match, when there was Claymores being kicked out of, F5s being kicked out of, I was like, it's a real different experience. Even though they're very similar matches, they couldn't have been further apart at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, I was going to say, well, it'd be nice to. I mean, it'll be nice to see them use this as an excuse to actually go back to having title matches as opposed to essentially trading finishes, or one of them can't get up anymore, which appears to have been the standard sort of. Oh, someone's got a world title. Well, this is how it's going to be contested.
It works once in a blue moon. It works with people like Goldberg, where they can't really do much else. It works with. Sometimes it works with guys like Lesnar. It needs to be used sparingly. As well. It's every 2 years. I don't want to see this every match. I want to see that sort of match once every 2 years, maybe once every 3 years. It's not
save that for the Saudi shows, I think. Save that for the Saudi shows. I'll say, because nobody cares about them anyway. So, but
it's interesting now because Drew McIntyre is the first British WWE champion. He's the third. He's the third British World Heavyweight Champion of all time. He's the first Scottish World Heavyweight Champion of all time. So he's in good company here. He's quite at the top of his game.
Who were the other British? Who were the other two British World Champions?
Billy Robinson won the PWF World Heavyweight Championship, amongst others, and Nick Aldis is the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
Oh, Nick Aldis, yeah.
I always thought Pat O'Connor was from Northern Ireland. He's actually from New Zealand, but for some reason in my head I always thought Pat O'Connor was from the UK. No, he's not.
It's kind of a Mandela effect that Bulldog won it, didn't he? He never did. That's the thing.
I had to correct someone online, and they were like, "Well, they weren't a wrestling fan. They were like a really casual fan from the 90s. They were having my life saying that he definitely won it. And they even just screenshotted a picture, and I was like, "Dude, that's the Intercontinental Championship. It's a different
yeah."
And so it's.
I mean, see, McIntyre's now pretty much completed the sort of 2000 to now title from everywhere thing. He's like pretty much he's had. I mean, short of the NWA title, which I mean he's had the Impact. He's had
ICW.
Didn't have Global Force, did he? No, he didn't.
No.
He was an Impact champion.
He's done Impact. He had Impact. He had WCPW as it was. He had he's had titles in a lot of places. He's
pretty much done it all, hasn't he? And he's not even that old. He's quite young, and he's pretty much done it all. Yeah, he's about 30, 32, isn't he, or something?
32, 33, something like that. He's about my age, yeah. I seem to remember when there was an article about him in a wrestling magazine. I can't remember what magazine it was. It's one of the ones you can get in WH Smith, and there was an article about him shortly before he signed for WWE, before he went to OVW, was it Florida Championship Wrestling? But I remember reading it and thinking he was about my age then. I was probably about 18 at the time, maybe a bit older, 19. He's 34. So I was about 19.
Still very young.
Yeah, so he's a year older than me, 2 years older than me actually. So he's got a good 10 years left in him probably.
It's funny how it happened with Sheamus as well, but it's somebody who I've watched from the Indies being like a new guy up to being on top of the mountain sort of thing. So it happened with Sheamus as well, of course, but it's good to see it with somebody like Drew.
His red hand as his finisher when he wrestled in Dublin.
And you'll have seen that clip that was going around of the old Irish whip wrestling show that had.
I used to love Irish whip wrestling. I used to love IWW. I used to love that. But it was a bit gritty, but it was entertaining.
It was rough and red. Yeah, it was.
Sheamus without the tash. It was just didn't look right.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, it's like that was the thing. That was I think that featured on one of their main events featured as part of the MEW event that was taped for the Wrestling Channel. Yeah, it was. There was Assassin from MEW. For some reason, D'Lo Brown and Sheamus, as he was back then.
Yes, because D'Lo Brown and Al Snow did.
Sheamus.
Irish Whip Wrestling's still going, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, I've just googled it. And they have two champions going as well. Sheamus was the first one, then D'Lo Brown, then Drew McIntyre's been Irish Whip champion as well. Vic Viper, Captain Rooney. Then the one who's got it now has had it since 2015.
Nice.
Wow.
But speaking of long championship reigns, Dr. Wagner Jr., and Chris will be able to say this when he's on, but he's had one of his championships. There's a world championship since 2004. And he's had another one one of his other ones since 2008. So he's had these two world championships for ages. Before that, Al-Kanek had the belt for, I think it was 4,000 days, which is, I can't remember how long it is now, but it's a long time. So
mental, that, like, I know we're starting to get into Moolah and
Ultimo Dragon. Ultimo Dragon's had one of his championships for well over 10 years now. He's been it was like, I don't know what it is. Was it the NWA light heavyweight? Or
one
of these belts that you think is retired, but it's not. And Ultimo Dragon's just had it for 10 years, but it's not retired. If you look on Wikipedia, it's still got the plus, and it's counting through every day. Just
no one bothered to sanction him after it.
I think he does defend it sporadically. But let me just see if I can find, what is he? The main event. And the secret main event, Big Show versus Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, that would be. That was. I wasn't expecting to do that. Like, straight away. Yeah.
There was. Yeah. Well, yeah. It was a Raw match, but it was at Mania. It was just one that they didn't show on the broadcast. It was a dark match.
I thought that was part of Raw.
No, it was a part of Mania. It was a part of WrestleMania. There was a moment. Big Show can still go as well. Big Show's in good shape. But there was a part when I thought they were going to put the belt on Big Show. I popped when he chokeslammed him. I thought, oh no, oh no, I know what they're doing. But luckily they didn't. But there was a split second, but I believed that false finish. When Big Show had him up for that chokeslam, I thought, that's it.
I thought that was going to be it. Yeah.
Ruined it. But...
what about the hidden main event that the sort of hidden track at the end of WrestleMania, Rob? Yeah,
that'll go on the DVD, I think, won't it?
There'll be a DVD. It'll be on the DVD.
Yeah, it'll be the extended cut.
Swear word, then I just dropped an F-bomb. You might have to bleep that bit out in the final.
That's all right, man. Like I said, I'm gonna
extended cut because that they can do that now. They can do extended cuts now because if everything's pre-recorded, they can do that now, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But one thing we haven't talked about yet, which I think was an important match, it was probably one of the only ones that had a really big build, was Dolph Ziggler versus Otis, which had a really good, would have worked better if it had a crowd, because obviously the big pop was going to be Mandy Rose coming back, but there was no crowd to pop, so nothing happened. Nice ending, and I think everyone liked it. But
I loved it.
I've got to ask though, right? I mean, could Mandy Rose have picked anything that was closer to the color of her flesh than the outfit she was wearing? That was on camera.
That was a bit of a weird looking outfit, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a weird outfit, wasn't it? But
it was like it just looked like from certain points when certain lights were flashing on it from different directions, it just looked like it was non-existent. You know, it's like tan. Like
I think in terms of the in terms of the match, though, the match was good, but the build-up, I don't normally like those kind of storylines, those sort of romance angles. But that I thought was done pretty well. Yeah, I
think the start at Christmas, didn't there? The start at Christmas when she gave him the food.
Yeah.
And then it was a good payoff because I think Otis is like a sympathetic face because he's got that kind of face, doesn't he? Where he's like kind of a little bit silly and a bit.
Well, he's like, what?
He'd be like, I can't have a word for it, but
all the characters did what they were supposed to do.
Formless is the word I'm looking for.
It's got to be Mustafa Ali is the hacker guy.
Yeah. Oh, is he? Oh, yeah, because it's in with his ring gear, isn't it? Yeah. I see what you mean.
Hang on.
Looks like
just out of interest, and I know this is going to initially sound like it doesn't make any sort of sense in the context of this conversation, but has it been 7 years since Solomon Crowe disappeared from NXT?
From who? Solomon Crowe?
Oh,
Sammy
Callahan.
Yeah. Has it been 7 years yet?
Hang on a minute, I'll look that up. 1 second there.
He's still one of the main stars in Impact, isn't it?
Yeah, he's still one of the main stars down there. Basically, because I mean,
so was EC3.
There's this whole theory that was kicking around for a while about if there's an idea that doesn't work out for one reason or another, but still seems good, still seems like it could have legs just with someone else, they'll wait 7 years and then try it again. And obviously, Sammy, 5 years. Oh, they're pulling the trigger a bit.
Sometimes they wait less. Sometimes they wait less. They rehash gimmicks and stories all the time. So if it hasn't worked the first time, they do rehash things. But I think you're right. It's a rehash of Solomon Crowe, just hopefully done better. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So is he a babyface for putting these cameras up everywhere and spying on the women's locker room? And is he meant to be
maybe this is the final conclusion of GTV? Maybe this is the final.
Yeah.
We had a 25-year build-up.
Yeah. I would love to see that. I would love to see them just use that to tie it together again. Right.
Like some veterans, it was me all along.
Yeah.
It's me, Austin.
It's like hardcore Holly, and it's like, do we care?
Wasn't that Goldust, wasn't it?
It was 1 point Goldust, it was 1 point Tom Green.
I heard that.
We never found out who that was, did we? GT.
No, but I think it was Goldust.
Supposed to be. I think that was the. I think that was the implication, but it never happened, did it?
Yeah, we never saw on camera that it was definitely.
It's probably Hornswoggle, wasn't it?
It's more than likely.
Yeah, that's what they do when they're sick of a storyline. They're like, Hornswoggle did it.
Yeah, oh God, that was. I mean, when they did that with the GM, that was just awful, wasn't it?
And Vincent's son they did that with as well. Remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't mind that so much. It was the GM because they could have done something really special with that, but
so they built it up for so long to be something important, and then when it just turned out to be that, it was such a cop out.
Yeah.
Didn't like that.
But I mean, the storyline was pretty much dead for a long time before they just went back to it, though.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't do that again. But yeah, you're right. It set up something else. That it set up a new storyline for the Who's the Hacker sort of thing. So that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But overall, it told a good story.
Off TV. What do you guys think about Drew McIntyre winning the title at WrestleMania? Would you have rather than waited until there was a crowd to get the big pop?
No, it was the right call, I think.
Yeah, it was probably the right time.
Get it off Lesnar.
Yeah,
right place and right time. I would say, yeah, definitely, because it was better than the Braun Strowman and Goldberg because it wasn't just like that's it. It was like, oh, he's kicked out of the Claymore kick. It could happen. It couldn't happen. But yeah, I think it was
the Strowman match was just like you didn't really care what was going on because there was no build, no investment.
Yeah.
Whereas this match, when there was Claymores being kicked out of, F5s being kicked out of, I was like, it's a real different experience. Even though they're very similar matches, they couldn't have been further apart at the same time.
Yeah,
I mean, I was going to say it'd be nice to. I mean, it'll be nice to see them use this as an excuse to actually go back to having title matches as opposed to essentially trading finishes or one of them can't get up anymore, which appears to have been the standard sort of. Oh, someone's got a world title. Well, this is how it's going to be contested.
It works once in a blue moon. It works with people like Goldberg, where they can't really do much else. It works with. Sometimes it works with guys like Lesnar. It needs to be used sparingly. As well. Every 2 years. I don't want to see this every match. I want to see that sort of match once every 2 years, maybe once every 3 years. It's not
save that for the Saudi shows. I think save that for the Saudi shows. I'll say because nobody cares about them anyway. So, but
it's interesting now because Drew McIntyre is the first British WWE champion. He's the third. He's the third British World Heavyweight Champion of all time. He's the first Scottish World Heavyweight Champion of all time. So he's in good company here. He's quite at the top of his game.
Who are the other British? Who are the other two British World Champions?
Billy Robinson won the PWF World Heavyweight Championship, amongst others, and Nick Aldis is the NWA World Heavyweight.
Nick Aldis,
I always thought Pat O'Connor was from Northern Ireland. He's actually from New Zealand, but for some reason in my head I always thought Pat O'Connor was from the UK. No, he's not.
It's kind of a Mandela effect that Bulldog won it, didn't he? He never did. That's the thing.
I had to correct someone online, and they were like, "Well, they weren't a wrestling fan. They were like a really casual fan from the 90s. They were having my life saying that he definitely won it. And they even just screenshotted a picture, and I was like, "Dude, that's the Intercontinental Championship. It's a different."
Yeah.
And so it's.
I mean, see, McIntyre's now pretty much completed the sort of 2000 to now title from everywhere thing. Hasn't he? He's like pretty much he's had. I mean, short of the NWA title, which I mean, he's had the Impact. He's had
ICW.
I don't know if he didn't have Global Force, did he? No, he didn't.
No.
He was an Impact champion.
He's done an Impact. He had Impact. He had WCPW as it was. He had he's had titles in a lot of places. He's
pretty much done it all, hasn't he? And he's not even that old. He's quite young, and he's pretty much done it all. Yeah, he's about 32, isn't he, or something?
32, 33, something. He's about my age, yeah. I seem to remember when he there was an article about him in a wrestling magazine. I can't remember what magazine it was. One of the ones you get in WH Smith, and there was an article about him shortly before he signed for WWE, before he went to OVW, was it Florida Championship Wrestling? But I remember reading it and thinking he was about my age then. I was probably about 18 at the time, maybe a bit older, 19. He's 34.
He's 34,
so I was about 19
he's still very young.
Yeah, so he's a year older than me, 2 years older than me, actually. So he's got a good 10 years left in him, probably.
It's funny how it happened with Sheamus as well, but it's somebody who I've watched from the Indies being like a new guy up to being on top of the mountain sort of thing. So it happened with Sheamus as well, of course, but it's good to see it with somebody like Drew.
Red hand as his finisher when he wrestled in Dublin.
And you'll have seen that clip that was going around of the old Irish Whip Wrestling show that had.
I used to love Irish Whip Wrestling. I used to love IWW. I used to love that. But it was a bit gritty, but it was entertaining.
It was rough and red. Yeah, it was.
Sheamus without the tash. It was just a look like it.
Sure.
I mean, it's like that was the thing. There was I think that featured on one of their main events featured as part of the MEW event that was taped for the Wrestling Channel. Yeah, it was. There was Assassin from MEW. For some reason, D'Lo Brown and Sheamus, as he was back then.
Yes, because D'Lo Brown and Al Snow did.
Sheamus.
Irish Whip Wrestling's still going, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, I've just googled it. And they have two champions going as well. Sheamus was the first one, then D'Lo Brown, then Drew McIntyre's been Irish Whip champion as well. Vic Viper, Captain Rooney, and then the one who's got it now has had it since 2015.
Nice.
Oh.
Wow.
Speaking of long championship reigns, Dr. Wagner Jr., and Chris will be able to say this when he's on, but he's had one of his championships. There's a world championship since 2004, and he's had another one since one of his other ones since 2008. So he's had these 2 world championships for ages. Before that, Al-Kanek had the belt for, I think it was 4,000 days, which is, I can't remember how long it is now, but it's a long time. So
mental, that, like, I know we're starting to get into Moolah and
Ultimo Dragon. Ultimo Dragon's had one of his championships for well over 10 years now. He's been it was like, I don't know what it is. Was it the NWA light heavyweight? Or
one
of these belts that you think is retired, but it's not. And Ultimo Dragon's just had it for 10 years, but it's not retired. If you look on Wikipedia, it's still got the plus, and it's counting through every day. Just
no one bothered to sanction him after it.
I think he does defend it sporadically. Let me just see if I can find. What is he?
I thought the pre-show on night 2 was actually pretty decent. Some people were saying it was pointless, but I thought it was pretty decent.
It was great.
It showed that obviously Natalya carried the match, but it showed you that Liv Morgan has quite a good wrestling prowess and can stand toe to toe with somebody like Natalya.
Yeah, there was more like actual chain wrestling than the Cesaro Drew Gulak match. It was loads of moves transitioning into other moves. Yeah, they weren't executed flawlessly. They didn't look crisp. Wrestling doesn't need to look flawless. It's not a performance, but it is. But it's not mixable. The moves looked a little bit rough around the edges. Good. That's how I like my wrestling. I was fine with that match. And I really like the fact that Liv Morgan went over as well.
I mean, I'm glad that she's getting a push.
The one question I've got is, when did Liv Morgan start to turn into a cross between Jade from the UK indie scene and Paige?
It's when she came back. It's like the lesbian...
Did you hear the controversy? Someone made a comment on Twitter recently saying, since when was Liv Morgan turning into Scarlett Bordeaux? And Killer Cross commented saying, now apparently, or something like that. And then Nia Jax kicked off and went like, how dare you, you're developmental, you don't need to be talking about main roster stars like this, blah, blah, blah. I was like, pretty sure Killer Cross is probably a bigger star than Nia Jax and Liv put together, but hey,
probably,
That's not on, like, is it? Anyway, but I think
guess it's just a respect the business kind of thing, isn't it?
But Liv Morgan started this sort of new persona when she came back as Lana's secret girlfriend or something, isn't she?
That's right, yeah.
Which was a bit random as in itself, and they haven't mentioned that since, so I don't know why.
It's because she was shoehorned into it. What happened was she was meant to have that other gimmick where she was like cutting her hair.
In the bath.
You see the bath with the candles. That was one way they were going to go, but then they shoehorned it into the whole Rusev, Lashley, Lana storyline, and then didn't know how to follow it up because they did it just spare in the moment. So they kind of squandered a little bit of some of her plans there, unfortunately.
I mean, as you say, I mean, that match itself was absolutely. I mean, for me, that was a really, really brilliant match. It looked like a fight. It was well contested. It was like it was just really entertaining. It was
what it was. In the search for trying to find that belt that Ultimate Dragons had for all this time, I found one of the titles that Dr. Wagner Jr. has had since 2008. It's the WWA World Junior Light Heavyweight Championship. Since 2008, he has had that title. It's not the one Ultimate Dragon currently has. I can't find what it is. I'm trying to find it. But it's one you would have heard of. It's about that you would have read about or seen YouTube clips of or so on and so forth. You definitely will know what it is when you see it. I just can't find what this title is, but I will be searching.
I suppose the only match we haven't spoke about is the tag team match, Street Profits versus Angel Garza and Austin Theory.
He did the job, didn't he?
It's good, it's good. I liked it.
I mean, I'm glad it was. I'm glad it was sort of mercifully as short as it was, because we got about an hour's worth of it in various formations on this morning's Raw. It was, when we had, it was. It was a brilliant way to introduce Bianca Belair to the main roster.
They followed it up on Raw as well, which was good to see.
Yeah. I mean, that was the thing. I mean, it's like you could. I don't know if they were stalling for time or something potentially on the tapings, but having the tag team match and then the singles match and then the 6-person match one after the other.
It would have worked well with an arena because it would have let the crowd digest. It wouldn't have burnt the crowd out. That worked quite well. So it did the same with the audience watching at home, where it didn't burn them out, it didn't puff them out, it didn't tire them out. I liked the way they structured the matches. Sometimes when you put two big matches on next to each other, you're just exhausted. You need that Divas Battle Royal, or the whatever it may be, the comedy match, the throwaway match, or just something just to after the Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, or whatever classic you just watched it. You do need that match just to right. Okay. I'm gonna get a drink. I'm just gonna chill out, zone out for a minute before I've got the next epic match. I think that just slotted nicely in the middle. There's nothing objectively wrong with that match.
No,
big fan of.
I think every match has its good points to it. Really, there's no bad match on the bill. But then again, it was pre-recorded and edited, wasn't it? So that's why probably why
some of it was quite heavily edited. But hey ho, make the most out of the situation you're in. I think they did a really good job of masking weaknesses. If anything had to be redone, I think that Rollins versus Owens match was probably quite heavily edited.
Yeah. It looked a bit iffy, like some of it. Yeah.
I would love to see the full version of that. I would love to see the full version of that because I mean, I did really enjoy that match, but it was a strange one because it sort of seemed like it should have been a show stealer, but it was the one that got lost in the shuffle for me.
I think just because we had the Boneyard match that night, it got lost in everything, and the oh my god, did you see that awful Braun Strowman match? It just got lost in there. Do you know what though? They did a really good job because the feud was quite flat and I wasn't invested. Then they managed to somehow get me really, really into it in the last 2-3 weeks, and then the match itself, I think it over-delivered. But obviously, it's Tyler Black and Kevin Steen. Of course, it was going to be great, and that spot at the end. That's the perfect WrestleMania moment. I just think if it would have been in the arena, he would have jumped out of the pirate ship.
Well, he did want to jump off the pirate ship because he tweeted, he had photos, he took photos of himself. He went to the arena, took photos of the pirate ship to figure out where he could jump from. And he said if he could have done that, he would have. But the next serious thing was the big WrestleMania sign that they made.
Next time
so next time they do have a big set piece like that, that's what he's going to do, I think.
I have located that title that Ultimo Dragon has had all this time. It's the NWA International Junior Heavyweight Championship. That is that used to be the main light heavyweight cruiserweight title in all Japan back in the 1980s. So a lot of these matches you would have seen with Tiger Mask, Kobayashi. These all were for that title. Chavo Guerrero Sr., Gino Hernandez all had runs with that belt. You'll note when you see it, Ultimo Dragon on July 19th or 19th of July, I should say, will have had that championship for 10 years.
Wow.
Generally had it for 3,544 days, and it's not retired. He does defend it sporadically, so it's not like it's on the line every week or anything like that. But it's just one of those forgotten titles.
Old-fashioned title defense where it was every few months rather than every few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's once a year, to be honest. But he's got other things going on with Dragon. He's in Dragon Gate. He's managed.
Of course, he's got enough on his plate, hasn't he? So it's a bit like Pete Dunne when he was the UK title. I thought, he's going to be the UK champion for years and years. They're going to be old-fashioned with this. And then he lost it to Walter. So. And Walter's had it for nearly over a year now, hasn't he? So
yeah, I mean, this day and age, that's considered a long time, isn't it? A year. But if you look back historically, a year is really a drop in the ocean compared to some people's title reigns.
Yeah, I mean,
one person had the NWA International title for must have been about 10 years. He had it. I think it was about 4,000 days. The same guy, I can't remember his name now. He had the All Asia Championship for I think it was 6,000 days. So people can hold titles for a long time. Bruno Sammartino had the WWE. We're in a different era now. Like the talk attention spans are shorter. But I think a good 2-year championship reign, as long as I just love Okada and his run in New Japan, when it just seemed like it was
Nobody could
forced
beat
down
him.
your throat. He was winning, but because he was putting on the match of the year contenders every time, he deserves to be winning.
You want
I think Tyler really should still have that title. There's no I don't think you can justify taking that title off of Okada because he's the best. So I think as long as you're the best, just keep the title on somebody. I think title changes should be used very sporadically to mean something.
Absolutely.
I don't like titling. I like a good year, 18-month title reign minimum. It is a different era now. It's a different time, and I grew up in the Attitude Era as well, when it was literally the title would change hands every week, or
every week.
WCW in 2000, it was like WCW in 2000. It was like title change, and it is exciting, and it does make you go, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. It is kind of cool, but it does devalue. I think I like as long as the title reign is good, and there's arse matches, good stories, rivalries that get you invested. There's no reason to take the title off of anybody.
No. As long as it's not like WCW in 2000, then fine, because that was just like the worst title change. If you look at the timeline of WCW Championship in 2000, it's the worst ever timeline that you've ever seen.
Was there like 22 title changes or something over the year?
In that year, including David Arquette and Vince Russo.
That was.
That's the worst one. You know what? That was the worst. The Arquette thing. I wouldn't have minded the Arquette thing if they'd have done it with the TV title.
Yeah. Because he's off TV.
States. Yeah, exactly. That would have made sense. Maybe even the United States, but the world title. Oh, that was a bad move.
I mean, to be fair, the TV title couldn't really have gone much lower in anyone's estimation after old Hacksaw pulled it up out of the bin and just decided he was the champion. You know, that was
found it like Midian did with the European.
Yeah,
he just found it. He was like, "Oh, I have the title to hold it out because I found it in your bag." That's it. That's what's going to happen with the 24/7 title, isn't it? It's going to be chucked in the bin, and somebody's going to find it in about a year's time, and then be like, "It's mine! It's mine!"
I really hope it's Midian that finds it again.
Oh well, that'd be great if Midian did. What's he doing these days, Midian? Let's have a look.
And it's not a lot. He does a couple of podcasts with Henry Godwin every now and again. Like he did that Shoot podcast a little while ago. When he got on YouTube.
Right.
He doesn't do a lot.
He wasn't the best wrestler, was he?
He was all right.
He was competent, but he wasn't. He wasn't memorable, was he? I mean, we're talking about him now, but he wasn't like a memorable character or anything. Dennis Knight, age 51. He's retired 2006 apparently, so it would have to be a one-off. It would be something like that. Yeah, it would have to be something like.
I like Midian. I say bring him back.
I didn't like his nudist character.
Oh no,
that was a bit.
Not naked Midian.
One of the weird things that seemed to go around in the early to mid 2000s when a wrestler was on the way out. It seemed like the last match that they worked, whether it was a dark match or a TV match or whatever, they work under like a different gimmick. I mean, I noticed this a few times with things. I mean, apparently Dennis Knight's last match that was a dark match for like before Velocity was taped. I think it was. They brought him out as Tex Slazenger, like his old cowboy gimmick from WCW. They had Canyon. Yeah, they had Canyon do Mortis one more time before he.
I was sure they did. Yeah, it wasn't televised.
Yeah, and I mean, even WCW.
Mortis was one of my favourite characters. Every time I got a WWE video game, I'd always do a create character of Mortis, even if I'd never recreate Booker T or Goldberg or Hogan. Mortis was like the one. I was really into that feud at the time, like the Blood Runs Cold with
Glacier and
Cat.
At the time, I was quite young, so for me, I didn't see any of the hokiness.
I like Glacier,
I thought it was awesome, and I still think it's kind of cool because I've got really good memories of that feud. Maybe if I'd have been 5-6 years older, I wouldn't feel the same, but I was at the right age for that feud.
He comes across as a really nice fella as well. I mean, there's been a few times I've heard him on various podcasts and such like, but he's
and
I mean, he's like he's come back with he's sort of putting back into things again at the minute. Like he's got the wrestling school on the go.
He works for AEW, doesn't he, as a trainer?
Does he?
Has he been?
Oh, because he was in Cody's Entourage, wasn't he? At All Out, wasn't he, or something? Sorry, All In.
He's a part of it. I think he's a producer, occasional wrestler, and trainer, as far as I'm aware. AEW.
Cool.
Oh, cool.
He's a member of the Nightmare family, isn't he? He's like part of Cody's. Cody's like trusted entourage, DDP, a couple of others.
It's good to see him. It's good to see him still sort of being in there and being involved with the thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
when do we think we're going to get the Hall of Fame? SummerSlam?
Possibly. It might even be Survivor Series at this point. It's
yeah, we don't know when it's going to be back to normal, do we? So it could be we could have a double Hall of Fame next year, maybe, if it's at this rate, you know what I mean? It could be Royal Rumble. It could be Royal Rumble, we'll get it.
Could be. You got to fly Liger in from Japan, so there's got to be international flights approved. You know, it's
yeah.
I think you should go back to how it used to be back in the 90s, where it was just like in a little place, a few like people there. But so like the cauliflower
Cauliflower Alley Club,
Cauliflower Alley Club, like that. Right. To me, or the NWA Hall of Fame, where it's personal. It's like an award ceremony, but it's not like a wrestling show.
Yeah. In the 90s, it was like more of like a black tie dinner, wasn't it? Where they would all like stand, like they would all sit at a table, wasn't it? Yeah.
But WWE have the black tie dinner in an arena full of fans. So hang
on. No, they couldn't do that. Food fight.
I think they might have. Sort of learned from last time not to have it in an actual arena setting with fans.
That was last year with Bret Hart, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I've been doing recently? I've been rewatching loads of Keith Hart matches. I think Keith Hart might be my favourite Hart out of all of them. I put up a post page, who's your favourite? Yeah, for me it's between Bret Hart, because he was like, I loved him when I was younger, and Keith Hart, and maybe Bruce Hart's in the conversation.
I like
for me,
Bruce Hart,
yeah, I
like Bruce Hart.
Yeah, for me those are the three. I don't know a lot about Wayne Hart. He's really hard to find matches on. All I know is that he was friends with Dynamite Kid, very close friends, and he refereed a lot. Other than that, I can't really find any Wayne Hart matches. I know Dean Hart also refereed. He died in 1990. So again, there's not a lot about him you can find. But Ross as well. Ross is like the big unit, the strong one. Not a lot of matches from him. You can find matches online from him, but it's not enough to keep you going for a day. But But with Keith Hart, there's some brilliant matches online. Obviously, Owen Hart's early stuff from his like New Japan run back in the 80s. Really cool.
Owen Hart, I know it sounds stupid, but I think Owen Hart's very underrated still. Even though he got his due, he's still underrated. Owen Hart actually wrestled on. Owen Hart actually wrestled for the British Wrestling Federation.
World of Sport.
World of Sport. Yeah, he was on World of Sport before he was on
was a regular on World of Sport as well. The oldest one, Smith, was a regular there. World of Sport.
Because Max Crabtree had a good relationship with Stu Hart, didn't he? So
I mean, there was one episode of World of Sport I was watching back a while ago, and I'm sure it had Marty Jones versus Owen Hart and Tiger Dalibar Singh versus Bret Hart. Later on in the it was excellent matches. I mean, Marty Jones versus Owen Hart. That was that was going to be a clinic. You know what I mean? The relationship with Stampede was brilliant. Like it was good to sort of get that bit back with that sort of back and forth between them. But I'm sure didn't Liger wrestle on that without his mask?
Yeah.
On World of Sport, I'm sure he did. Yeah.
Well, the original Tiger Mask was Sonny. What was his name? The original Tiger Mask wrestled on World of Sport regularly. There's Sonny something, I can't remember his surname, but he was a regular on World of Sport. One of you'll know him when you see him. You'll go, oh god, that's him. But yeah, the original Tiger Mask was a regular on World of Sport.
Mr. Fuji, I'm sure Mr. Fuji turned up on there once or twice as well.
Was it? Was it? Did he?
Yeah.
Was it the other Fujiwara? Because there were two Fujiwaras, aren't there? There's Harry Fujiwara, and then there's like the other Fujiwara from Japan. There's two of them. Maybe I've got a feeling it might have been the other one, the one that trained Ligo and trained.
Might have been like
Muto, but I might be wrong.
I'll need to check into that. I'll have a look into that for next time.
Tiger Mask 1. He definitely was in World of Sport. I'm sure he was. Sammy Lee.
Ah, right. Yes. Yeah.
That's the original Tiger Mask.
I mean, I do remember some of his matches. Yeah. It has been a while since I've watched any of the classic World of Sport, to be fair, which is I keep.
Me too. I've not rewatched any of it in years, to be honest. It's the sort of thing you do on your day off, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
mission through it all.
That's the thing. It's like when you find a rivalry or like a couple of matches that were really good, and then you sort of delve in to find the rest of the rivalry. I mean, that's why Jim Breaks is still.
Mark Rocco is one of the best wrestlers ever. In terms of actually being good at wrestling, as in not promo, not charisma, not looking the part, just actually technical wrestling, how good you are at chain catch wrestling. Mark Rocco probably in the Mark Rocco top 5. Really, really good.
Rollerball Rocco.
Yeah, that's him. He was the second Legend. Black Tiger. He was the first Black Tiger. Sorry, he was the first Black Tiger. The second one was Eddie Guerrero. Third one
I was going to say that was Eddie Guerrero.
Yes, wow. Black Tiger 2 was Eddie Guerrero. Black Tiger 1 was Mark Rocco. I think 3 was Silver King. 4 was, I think it was Ishii.
A great video you should watch, Lucas. Well, you probably already know all this, but Wrestling Bios have just put a thing about the WCW cruiserweights, and it goes through them one by one. All of them. Have you watched it? Right. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm up to speed with all of them now.
Cool.
Yeah, there's really good. There's actually Joe, the one that they were like, oh, I bet you forgot this guy. I'd completely forgotten him. I can't remember who it was now. Not the one from the Young Dragons, but the other one.
There was a Japanese guy. Yeah, I forgot who it was. Yeah, it's a good video.
The one that used to wear the weird outfit with the weird mask. I just could not remember for the life of me who that was.
No,
it was. I mean, I was wondering whatever happened to Blitzkrieg from the old WCW cruiserweights, because he was someone else. You know, he was brilliant in ring, but just never seemed to get the push.
Weird how these people just disappear, isn't it, out of our lives?
Yeah,
they're for beat and gone forever.
Fabulous Blitzkrieg, was it, or was it just Blitzkrieg?
It was just Blitzkrieg. He had like a sort of red, black, and silver suit on with the mask had sort of lightning bolts.
Oh yeah. It says he retired in 1999, which is weird because he debuted in 1994, so that's a very short career.
Yeah, he didn't hang around much, did he?
But his Wikipedia, he's only been in WCW, and that's it. Wow, right. Very small career.
That's another one, that.
I'll put the Wikipedia page in the chat. Anyway, we're going off a topic a little bit, aren't we? Here.
That's all right. It's all right. It's all good bits for sort of extra segments and that. So.
Chat. Yeah, we could have little clips, couldn't we, on YouTube about it.
All in all, guys, WrestleMania from start to finish.
Yeah, just
beginning to the end. What was the best match? What was the worst match? I'll start with me. Best match for me was Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley. Worst match was probably Strowman and Goldberg. Probably. What about you, Neil?
The match I most enjoyed was probably the Boneyard match, even if you want to class it as a match. If you don't want to class it as a match, then Randy and Edge.
As a match, so it's a match.
Okay, so then that it is. Least favourite, I'm probably in the same camp actually. Braun Strowman and Goldberg, because I really don't like Goldberg. I really don't like him at all. Not even as a person. I just don't like him.
Can't blame you. So fair criticism. All of Goldberg's criticisms are fair criticisms.
Yeah.
I think he can be used sparingly, in a positive way, to give the rub to someone in a good way. I just think they completely mishandled that here. So yeah, I think you can use Goldberg. He's not my cup of tea either. I'm not a big Goldberg fan. Haven't
Some
been
people
since
like
about
him.
2000. I used to like him when he was in WCW, but I was young.
Even then, it was a bit like shoving it down your throat sort of thing. I thought it was just like this guy wins with one move.
To be honest, at the time I didn't know any better. I was just like, oh, it's this guy. He wins a lot. Cool. But now, in hindsight, with 2020 vision, not so much a fan. That being said, you could use a character like Goldberg, a presence like Goldberg, creatively.
Kind of, I suppose. Yeah, it was like a passing of the torch because Braun Strowman kind of turned into that, didn't he, for a while?
Yeah. But just the whole. If you heard the original plan before they realised that basically what happened was Goldberg, his last match that he's contracted to do was WrestleMania. Obviously this year. I don't know why I was like the one this year. So they were originally going to have him retain against the replacement when they learned it wasn't Reigns, and then do Reigns and Goldberg at SummerSlam, hoping there'd be a crowd by then. Then they found out Goldberg wasn't willing to extend his contract and that this match will be his last one. So, like, right, now we've got to get the belt off him. The original plan before they realised that they'd have to take the belt off him, and they thought when they originally thought Goldberg was going to beat the replacement at WrestleMania, it was originally going to be Jeff Hardy.
Wow.
Now, would you have rather have seen Jeff Hardy or Strowman? I'd rather have seen Jeff Hardy leave with the title, to be honest.
Would have been very interesting, that actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd rather see Jeff Hardy with the title than Strowman.
It would have been a different match altogether as well, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I suppose it depends on. I mean, under current circumstances, would Hardy have been available?
He was. Yeah. No, he was. He was. Yeah. Apparently, that was all worked out. It was all good to go, and then they were like, "Oh, Goldberg has to lose to this person." Like, oh,
wow.
Maybe not put the belt on him. Then let's put it on him, which I think is a shame because I think I like Jeff Hardy. I mean, I don't.
Jeff Hardy's good, but he's got a tendency to misbehave, hasn't he? So
he does, and also he's not a very good wrestler
anymore. I would have said keep him at IC level. And
yeah. Do you know what? It was very impressive when he did a front flip in 1999. Wrestling has progressed quite a lot since then, and doing an inverted jawbreaker and a corkscrew and a front flip. It's
not as impressive.
You've got guys like Brian Cage doing crazier stuff than that. You've got heavyweights doing that stuff now. I just think it's been doing so much better, so radically better by other wrestlers. What his whole shtick is just the whole crazy guy does a stunt, does all these crazy things. I just don't think that is even it's done better elsewhere. I'd much rather see Darby Allin get a massive push than Jeff Hardy get a massive push in 2020. I actually think in their prime, Darby Allin is cooler and a better wrestler than Jeff Hardy in his prime, in my opinion. But maybe I might regret saying that because I was a massive Jeff Hardy fan in the year 2000. I even had the baggy trousers and the silly hair. So who knows? But I'm kind of done with Jeff Hardy.
I think both the Hardys are better as a team. Being honest, they're better as a tag team. I do like them both, but
that's it. I feel bad for saying it. Like, I really.
Hello?
What was that?
That was just my phone vibrating. I think.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, it's a weird situation WWE is in. I've got faith in them. They're ploughing ahead with Money in the Bank. AEW is ploughing ahead with Double or Nothing. The whole world has grinded to a stop. Wrestling hasn't, and I kind of like that.
That's quite good, actually.
It's the wheels keep on turning, so to speak, as they.
Yeah, certainly. Just.
What about you, Damien? What was your favourite and least favourite?
I really can't. I'm tied between two for my favourite match. I mean, I'm disqualifying from my own point of view. I'm disqualifying the Boneyard and the Funhouse because I'm somewhere between the Owens and Rollins match and the 5-way women's match for my favourite.
On the 5-way.
Yeah.
Very good match.
I mean, like I said, that match did everything it was supposed to do, and it yeah, exactly. I mean, it cemented Bailey as the champion, planted a little bit of seed for the actual dissension coming later on. It looked like a very reluctant assistance.
Yeah.
And like the eliminations were really sort of timed properly as well. It wasn't like
I like that.
It wasn't one of these things where everyone was in and then suddenly everyone was out. Like you get with certain you get in the
seemed to put them all over as well. I thought, put them all over as well. None of them looked weak at all. They all looked over in some way.
Everyone looked like a star in that match. Even Tamina, who we all knew would be eliminated first, she looked like $1 million coming out of that.
But she looked really good. Yeah, she made her look strong. Yeah, definitely.
Damien, if you were including the cinematic matches, would that have changed your choice to have Rollins and Owens at number 1, or would that still be the match of the weekend?
I reckon the Funhouse production that to me was the most entertaining part of the weekend. It was like just seeing the whole sort of the introspection of the John Cena character. It's almost like that someone had in production, like the production crew there, had listened to that interview that they'd had with Werner Herzog, where he said he was a big fan of WWE.
It's like a Werner Herzog.
Thinking David Lynch, weren't we?
Yeah,
I was saying David Lynch. If he was a wrestling producer, that's what the match would have looked like, because they're big fish.
You know what? I'm going to put up a post later saying, "Never mind AJ Styles. Has anybody checked on Jim Cornette? He's going to die."
His WrestleMania review drive-through show should be out today, so I've got that to listen to.
And he's also having Kevin Sullivan as a guest, because Kevin Sullivan was approached by Vice and he turned it down. And I think now
is that why? Okay.
Yeah, he turned it down because I think he thought it was going to be a bit of like a seedy, trashy documentary. I think he's seen it now and he's like, oh, actually, I want to say my part. And he's going to do that on Jim Cornette's show, so that's going to be
really interesting. Yeah.
Well, on that subject, what's the next episode of Dark Side of the Ring? What's the next one? It's what? Sorry.
Brawl for All, I think.
Brawl for All. Yeah.
The boxing thing. Yeah. It's not really scandalous, though, is it?
Well, I think they've done it to. Well, what they've done is they've done it to break it up a little bit, because we've had Tragedy, New Jack, and now I think we've seen
mental, and then this is like just a bit of something different. Okay, I see.
But I mean, it's not without its controversy, so we'll.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah,
there were things running under that.
I think it's going to be, as opposed to like Children Are Dead and this guy on cocaine.
One of them's going to be Owen Hart, isn't it? One of them. Owen
wrestling
Hart
isn't that silly. Owen Hart's going to be one, but that's going to be another sad one. Whereas this one is just going to be, look how silly wrestling is. Oh,
yeah.
I mean, there's one slight thing I've got to mention about the New Jack one though. There was the bit where he was on about the guy with the guy that he got with the Wolverine claw, and the police said that he'd stabbed him like 16 times or something. And he was like, 9.
I only stabbed him 9 times.
Yeah, he had 2 blades on his hand. There were probably 18 holes in the guy, but he might have only stabbed him. I remember stabbing him 9 times, but he had 2 blades in his hand. Yeah. Jeez, sorry.
New Jack's just mental, isn't
he? I mean, for the record, I'm not in any way, shape, or form disparaging Mr. New Jack.
We love the New Jack. If New Jack is listening to this, we love you.
Sorry.
So, Damien, what was your least favourite match?
The least favourite match, it's going to be the Strowman Goldberg one.
Yeah.
It didn't actually. I mean, the thing is that had a point. The Lashley and Black match didn't really have a place on the card, but. I mean, at least it was entertaining. It's weird. It's like
very entertaining, and it told a story. The thing is, for me, Lashley and Black, you look at that and you go, "Oh, that's going to be a bit of a decent match. You're going to have some kicks, some MMA stuff." With Strowman and Goldberg, expectations were extremely low, and they even managed to underdeliver on that. So,
the bar was set. The bar was set low, and they got a shovel.
And I don't know how they And that match was heavily edited as well. Can you imagine what it would have been like live in front of an audience?
God.
There was a bit when Goldberg set Strowman up for the jackhammer and started to lift him before Strowman reversed it. And I was like, oh God, no, you're going to kill him. And then I was like saying to the person I was watching it with, they're going to have to edit this so much. And then obviously Strowman reversed it into a power slam, and I was like, oh God, thank you. But I did believe that false finish on Raw when Big Show picked up, because McIntyre sold that chokeslam like a cruiserweight. He went up in the air, he crashed down. McIntyre ate that chokeslam from Big Show at WrestleMania.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
See on Raw. And I was like, for a split second, I bought into that false finish, and I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Thankfully, McIntyre retained. But yeah, we still haven't had an English world champion in WWE.
No, I mean it could have been Neville, couldn't it? In the grand scheme of things, it could have been Neville, but that never happened, unfortunately. But there's still time. Pete Dunne could be, or Tyler Bate, or somebody like that could definitely be the first English-born champion. Yeah,
I agree. And both those two are capable of being the best, perceived as the best wrestler in the world. There's no reason why it wouldn't be believable that they could be the #1 wrestler in the world. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those guys be jobbed out on main event in 18 months' time.
Yeah, hot take on this one. I think that the whole fact that NXT UK overlooked a particular Mr. Connors could mean that he maybe turns up on one of the shows, one of the brands elsewhere. Maybe goes for some gold elsewhere.
I see him doing exactly what he's doing now. I just see him as a good heel on NXT UK. I don't see him coming over to the States for much. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see him. See him moving across. I'd like him to, because he's a good wrestler.
I mean, we're disparaging people who aren't signed to the company yet. We're disparaging Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr. They could be the first English-born WWE champion.
I mean, that's the thing. If Zack Sabre had stayed there when the cruiserweight,
I would have been a jobber now.
They would have ruined him, as you say. I mean, I've still got that. I've still got a hold of that match with him and Tyson Dukes from the first round of the Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah.
Oh,
absolute clinic that, like. I mean, the match at the show, on the Wrestle Talk stream with him and Shibata.
Oh, I remember it. I didn't watch it on the Wrestle Talk stream, but I've seen it before, and very, very good. To me, that's a wrestling match.
Yeah,
that's a wrestling match. If someone says to me, "Oh, what is this thing that you watch?" I go, "Oh, it's this. It's this." Shibata and Zack Sabre, perfect. And then they see something like Strowman and Goldberg, and I'm like, "Oh, please don't judge me. This isn't wrestling." But it is.
It's hard to defend something like that, isn't it? Really, to be honest.
Yeah, it's hard to defend it. But yeah, I am very looking forward to seeing Jim Cornette's reaction to the Firefly Funhouse. His reaction to the Go Home segment with Cena and The Fiend was hilarious, and that is just because it involved puppets. So wait till you see his reaction to this. And I normally agree with pretty much everything Cornette says. Not everything. I think he's very opinionated. I probably am too. I think he takes things a lot further than me. I think he takes things a bit more extreme than me. We're usually roughly around.
He takes them a bit too personally, I think.
Yeah, totally. And I'm willing to give something like the Final Deletion a go and praise. I love the Boneyard match. I'm willing to give these things a go. I enjoyed Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
So, we do have difference of opinions, but I think it's going to be really fun just to see him explode when he sees the Firefly Funhouse, because it's so far away from a normal wrestling match. We were even saying earlier, it's not really a match. It was a match. It was a 13-minute wrestling match.
Yeah.
But if you could get as far away from, Harley Race versus Bruiser Brody, actual wrestling, Dick the Bruiser, the Destroyer, Carl Gotch, Buddy Rogers, that's wrestling. this is the furthest thing. This is probably as far as you can go other than
isn't
doing
this
an
like logical
scene.
conclusion of what wrestling's supposed to be? Isn't it like it's entertainment, and then because of technology, this is how it's meant to be now, technically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought we were going to get a scene where it went animated, and at the end of it, the Fiend takes John Cena as the new puppet in his funhouse, because Cena's not going to be on TV. Great. So you keep Cena on TV as a puppet for the next 6 months.
Makes me think, why didn't we not get a puppet Eric Bischoff? You know, the puppet that the Legion of Doom used to have? That looked like Eric Bischoff, didn't it? Why didn't we not get that?
Rubble, yeah. Rubble. I wonder what the hell happened to Rubble. That was...
Somebody probably owned it. Somebody probably owned that doll, and it probably cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
On that note.
apropos nothing, I caught up with a little bit of NXT from either 1 or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember what it was because I was drifting in and out of consciousness while I wasn't well. I just had the network.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Stokely Hathaway, or whatever name he's going under at the moment in WWE, appears to have out Authors of Pain. I don't know who this new tag team he's put together are, but they're basically two.
What's his name now? Malcolm Bivens, isn't it? His new name's Malcolm Bivens.
I think so. Yeah.
He's like do he remind you of Clarence Mason with just the black guy with the bald head and the glasses and the business suit? Just brings back memories. Clarence Mason from the 90s, the original manager of the Nation Domination. But yeah, no, his new tag team. They were in the
Indian guys. Yeah.
Yeah, they were in the Battle Royal at the first Saudi Arabian show. Remember, there was the 50-man Royal Rumble.
Oh yes, yeah.
They were in that.
I mean, I don't remember. I didn't remember seeing them, but then again, I've only watched the Saudi show once.
And do you know where else I think they were? I think they were on one of the Worlds Collide shows, maybe the one last year, back in January last year, when it was like ACH versus Tyler Bate. Interpromotional undercard guys from the little brand, 205 versus NXT UK, that sort of thing. And it was, I think one of them was in that, perhaps. But I've definitely seen them on TV before, but in a very low position, like in a battle royal or something like that. But yeah, two big Indian dudes. Let's see where they go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I just see. I mean, again, it might just be my sort of cynical mind on this one, but it sort of looks like the amount of times that either one or other of the Authors of Pain are out of service, they're already grooming their replacements. Yeah, it's like okay, this one's in, we'll get another one. You know, it's like
the Basham brothers, isn't it?
Yeah. That was an unfortunate. That
was pretty much the same idea, wasn't it? The two big guys, Basham brothers, and Gemini as well, the two twins.
Yeah.
And they just get bored of them, don't they? They're just like, oh, two big beefy guys. And what was the tag team? They both looked like Usher. I can't remember the names, but they both look like muscular versions of Usher. I can't remember the name.
Were they twins? Identical twins?
Yeah.
I think they were legitimately called the Dicks. They were called
not them, but I do remember them. But these two big identical twins, two big black guys, they got released.
It was just two Ushers. Called what?
Yeah, but they didn't get released at the same time. They got released like a month apart. It's really weird.
That was weird.
One got released, and then like 2 months later, the other one got released. Really strange.
It's an odd one. That it's like
they never made it. They only appeared on NXT a couple of times, didn't they? Like what, 3 or 4 times, if that?
Yeah, not
NXT, and then they just disappeared.
Oh, is that the? I think I know the brothers that you're on about. There was different.
They're like twins.
One of them was called Gabriel Summit, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think that's
Gabriel.
Right.
Yeah. Again, they did look like they had promise, but
yeah, I thought so. You know what WWE likes to do? They like to let people go, keep an eye on them from a distance, let them develop, let them mature, and then call them back when they need them. They do it all the time. They let people go off to Japan, let people go to ECW back in the day, and they call you back when they need you. They do it all the time.
Well, it's a crazy old situation, isn't it?